It's time for Dave's Digital Delights. Here he is, your digital marketing handyman, Dave Thackeray.
Good day, my lovelies. These are truly great times if you can tear yourself away from the computer long enough to enjoy them. And recording and remembering these kind of experiences is one of the specialist subjects of my guest on today's episode of Dave's Digital Delights. Dave welcomes David Sarna, the co-author of Evernote For Dummies. I don't know if you've tried Evernote. I have. I use it to record all my tweets through a program called If This Then That, ifttt.com. I guess the best way to describe Evernote is a remembering machine. Although it's not a machine, it's in the machine, whether it's a smartphone or whether it's your desktop or tablet, and whatever you want to retain, as long as it's digital, hence why it's here at Dave's Digital Delights, it will fit into the Evernote slot. Evernote.com, applications that fit on your desktop, apps that fit on your smartphones. There's everything there for you, and it's got millions of users across the world. No surprise. But there are only a few really true grandmasters, and David Sarna clearly is one of them. So to start off our chat, I wanted to find out how he first came across Evernote.
Well, it's an interesting story. I went to university with a fellow who turned out to be the personal computer correspondent of the Wall Street Journal, and we stayed in touch somewhat. He wrote an early review of Evernote when they had only 2 million subscribers, and he was raving about it, and I said, okay, that's interesting. He's a smart guy. I remember him. So I said, let me go and try it. And I tried it, and for me it was an ideal product because I'm naturally a messy person, and I saw Walt Mossberg was right. So I started using it, and I found that the more I used it, the more essential it was to me, the more I got out of it. And the better organized I am, the more easily I am able to find things, and so on. And that's why I like it so much.
Do you find there are things that you're doing with it now that you either found impossible to do earlier, or things that you just literally did not do earlier that because of Evernote you are doing in a different way? Because I, like you, am very messy, and I sometimes feel, well, crikey, that's just in the DNA. We just got to get on with it. But I like the idea of there being a tool out there that can actually help.
Well, what I did that was very useful is I had my fax connected so that it goes into Evernote directly. So I have an e-fax, and the faxes come in. I have my scanner connected to Evernote, so anytime I scan a document, it goes directly into Evernote. There are various other things that there is an interesting free program called IFFF that knows about Evernote and allows you to automatically have certain actions that capture useful things into Evernote. It's got all sorts of scripts that you can connect to all sorts of programs that you like, and it's totally free. It sort of watches for certain things, and when they happen, it triggers an action, which in my case is usually capture it to Evernote.
That's if so this, then really that, isn't it, David? That's IFTTT, isn't it? I've been using that myself, recipe-wise.
I think I missaid said that.
Yeah,
Which said
no,
that. I'm sorry.
but it's an incredible application that, like you mentioned, connects so effortlessly. And I use it with Twitter, so that whenever I post
I use
tweets,
it with Twitter too.
it's fantastic, because then it'll capture it onto a note in Evernote, and then I can go back and go, okay, well, I'm doing a digest of the week's tweets. I can find everything there, and if you hashtag stuff as well, it's so powerful. But
Right, so that's really, the thing that I think that many new users of Evernote miss is that they get all hung up in how to tag and index things. And most of the time, you don't need to do that. You can just let Evernote do it for you. So really, the whole secret, I believe, is to set things up so that most of the things you want to have your hands on are captured easily or automatically for you. And then you retrieve them because it reads all the documents, even if they were handwritten. It does a pretty decent job of reading handwriting and auto-indexing it. So generally speaking, I don't tag very much at all. I just type what I'm looking for, and more often than not, it finds it. If it's something where I feel that the context is not immediately going to find it for me, then I might add some tagging information, but I probably do that only 5% of the time.
So how would you define it? Because I struggle with this. Is it almost like your personal scrapbook of everything? Is it a library? I'm trying to find words to describe it to people who haven't necessarily tried it yet.
I mean, I think it's just an extension of your own brain or your own memory. It just is an external memory that remembers for you everything useful.
Do you use the desktop version, or do you use the web-based version? Do you use it on your smartphone? How do you go about using it the most?
Well, I use all of the above. I use it on my iPad. I use it on my laptop, which is something that I don't use as much as I used to anymore. I find that the iPad greatly reduced the amount of times I need to use a laptop, and it's much lighter. I do use it on the, I still have a BlackBerry. I'll probably switch over to the iPhone as soon as the new one comes out, but right at this moment, I use BlackBerry. You just heard it go off. And,
you can't get rid of the BlackBerry that easily.
Yeah, and the BlackBerry, actually, although Evernote was kind of useless on it in the early versions, has now got quite a credible version of it as well. And that's what I like so much, is that you can capture information from many different sources. For example, we could very easily have captured this conversation onto Evernote. So the fact that it captures so many different kinds of media, and in addition to that, has such an easy way of retrieving things. That's what I find is so valuable. There are a lot of specialized tools that do one thing well, but what this allows me to do that's so interesting to me is it allows me to relate all kinds of different things: web pages that I've captured, faxes, documents, emails, scanned documents, voice, everything that I want to refer to in the future, and I can easily relate them together, link them together, even combine them if I want. And that's probably the thing that I enjoy the most about using it.
You mentioned voice notes there, and that's a really interesting one, something that I am clearly very interested in, and you are technically minded. I wonder if you could give us hallucinate a time in the future when there will be an automatic transcription service that may be baked into Evernote that will actually give us that opportunity to make notes via audio files and then actually have something like Evernote transcribe them for us. Is that something that's ever going to be a reality? Because, we all mess around with things like Dragon and all these various different, Nuance Communications now doing such great things with Siri. Do you think in reverse, we'll see a time in the near future where we'll be able to transcribe?
There are a couple of programs. I actually wrote about them in the book, but also if you go to, there's a site where I try and keep the book up to date, which is totally free. I use Evernote to maintain a public notebook, for Evernote For Dummy notebook. And in there you will see several products that actually do transcription. They don't do it. They do it remotely. They do it in the cloud. There are various. Some of them are of quality. Some of them are good, but limited in how long a message they will transcribe for you. I also have had decent luck. Many times if I have important conversations, there are some tools where I can just record the conversation. That's easy. And then I send it to one of these transcription services that sends it back to me. And that's really pretty inexpensive. The price in the United States is roughly $2 a minute. Which is, I don't know, about £1.50 these days.
Yeah, I think everybody just expects anything that's automatically accompanied by technology these days to be free or next to nothing. It's actually, this is a very premium service, by comparison to stuff that we, get online. I'm just hallucinating a day when Google actually comes around with something that will actually transcribe.
Well, it's obvious that's going to come soon. The technology of voice recognition is getting better and better, and I actually believe that within a couple of years, voice recognition will do a really credible job of turning your conversations into a text, which can then easily be indexed and retrieved.
And that's when we really have to watch what we say, isn't it?
That's true.
So tell me about, if I'm completely new to Evernote then, I've not touched it before, I see it, I hear from you, David, the potential, I'm excited by it. Where would you recommend that people begin their journey with Evernote? Should we start doing just to sort of get to grips with the platform?
Well, I think that perhaps the easiest thing to do is to install it on whatever computer you use the most. It doesn't matter if it's a PC or a Mac or whatever. It works with all of them. And then I would make sure that the web clipper is installed, depending on which version. It may be automatic or you may have to add it. But I think the web clipping is probably the single most useful feature, because how many times have we all visited a website, said, oh, that's interesting, maybe we even print out a page, which we probably misplace, but being able to go to a site and essentially with one click, it's really two clicks, but with two clicks to capture the page, and then make it a note out of it, and then be able to retrieve that note, not only on the PC that you worked on or the Windows application, the Mac that you worked on, but or your cell phone or wherever you captured it, but because it's all synchronized in the cloud, you can then retrieve anything about that page from any of your favorite devices. And I think that that's one of the very valuable features of it, and the easiest to set up. Another thing is just to get in the habit of using it, even, if you have a smartphone, to use it just to take notes, to remember commitments. I have my calendar linked into it. I use the Google apps, so the Google Calendar. So my events are also there as captured as notes. But I think just getting used to the idea that every time you want to remember something, just use Evernote to remember it. Because the more you do that, the more you're going to count on Evernote to be your repository of everything that's important to you, and the more you're going to go back and use it.
I love that you called it a remembering machine, because that's something that we can all kind of empathize with. And I love the fact that from an Evernote perspective, anything that simplifies technology therefore will rein in a lot more people, because something that you and I probably acknowledge is that there's so few people out there who get to such a level with technology that they're fully conversant with it, that they're fully comfortable with it. I know there's more people in Europe right now who are really, really antsy about cookies ever since there was European law came in that big brands now need to announce that they're storing cookies. It actually caused more of a concern than the concern ever was before we had to start mentioning it. So I think things like Evernote are going to go a long way towards helping people use technology for the right reasons. And I
think that you are right.
Well, I do hope so, because that is, after all, our campaign to try and get more people using this stuff. But I'm also, just to finish off, David, I just wanted to talk to you about the future for Evernote, because there's a few really good extensions come out now. They've got Food, Clearly, Peak, and Hello, which is great from a business context, where you can go and, instead of taking somebody's contact card, you can shoot their picture, drop in a few notes onto your smartphone, and there's some sort of momentary recollection then, some sort of moment in time that you've captured to help you recognize people when you meet them again in the future.
Right. I like the fact that Hello is really just a special instance of Evernote. It's got some things to make it really easy, but underneath it's just a collection of Evernote notes. and I think that's what's so brilliant about it. I want to mention that there is a really good feature of Evernote that developers who want to make money should pay attention to, if your audience includes those. As I said, Hello was written using the Evernote API, as was Food. Now, that API is public, free, and any of us can use it. You could use it yourself if you're, for example, Apple has a very, very simple scripting language, AppleScript, which knows about Evernote. If you have it installed on your machine, and there are there's a Windows version of it, and anybody who has in mind an application that wants to do all of these things, I would encourage you, instead of building your own application from scratch, to just add on whatever it is that you want to do to what's there in the Evernote API, and have your app call the Evernote API. I think that's a feature that, because it's not brilliantly documented, it takes maybe a little bit. I mean, I tried to make it easier with my book, but I think only a very small proportion of the Evernote users actually make use of that feature, but it lends incredible power to Evernote by really making it extensible and allowing you to build it into all sorts of other applications.
My thanks to David Sarna for joining me on Dave's Digital Delights today to talk about Evernote for Dummies. And he has, as I mentioned, written lots of books, ebooks as well as physical books, who knows the ups and the downs of the publishing way of life. In fact, let me not stop here, because David also had some great words of advice to us publishers. You probably know that right now I'm hot on the ebook trail, having published two myself, sharing superheroes and marketing as your customers like it. Thanks very much for asking. So let's find out what David's top tips and advice are on the publishing world today.
Actually, there are some good notes on how to use Evernote to help you write books. I certainly used it a lot myself, especially to flesh out the outline. But to your specific point, in addition to the 6 books that were all published by major publishers the old-fashioned way, I do have a number of books which I wrote on very, very specialized topics, and which I have published in ebook format. I was kind of very pleasantly surprised. I personally, from my own personal experience, I found that the Amazon methodology is the simplest, and as long as you're pricing it right, is maybe the best way of doing it. But it all depends on what you're looking for. But they call it KDP.
Yeah.
And the advantage of KDP that I particularly like myself is, as long as you price it cheap enough, they give you 70% of the royalties. You can't argue with that.
They do most of the work.
Just to put it in comparison, most publishers today give you what they call 10% up to 15% of net sales. That's a very misleading number, because they will usually sell the book at 55% of list price or whatever, so that the royalties are based on that. So it's not nearly as good a deal as you think. And then they have things like holdbacks, and they pay twice a year, so they kind of use your money for a while. And I took a big hit. There were a couple of major chains that went out of business, and so all their stock came back to the publisher. So you kind of thought you sold the book, you got paid for it, and then when they went out of business, their whole stock went back, and all of a sudden you get a charge back for something that was sold 2 years earlier. So desktop publishing is not unattractive. I think if one wants to do it, it's important to buy one of these templates that will help you to make it look professional. I personally think that if the book has any value, you should make sure that somebody else proofreads it for you. I personally paid to have them proofread. Unfortunately, people who do that are very, very underpaid, so the cost is not too bad at all.
Good for the writer.
I found really good, for example, I wrote a book that the proofing and editing was done by somebody from Oxford University Press who was moonlighting, and I was just astonished at how inexpensive that was. Another thing that I did is I paid somebody to do the index. Now, both of those are things that one could do oneself, but I think that if you're trying to build a reputation and establish your name, you want to make sure that the end result looks professional, and the thing that's the least professional is if people find typos or grammatical errors or whatever. So it's really important and everybody needs a good editor.
Thank you for spilling your heart today. It's been great. A new world order for publishing and clean green fuel. You've got it all there, David Sarna. Thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your ideas, and I really look forward to welcoming you to London soon.
Well, thank you very much. I love to visit London. I'm usually there a couple times a year.
Great stuff. Have a great one. Thank you again for all your time today, and have a great day.
You too.
Hey, thanks again. That's the second time I've thanked David Sarna today, but he has been an extra special guest on Dave's Digital Delights. If you'd like to join me, I would love you to be here. So why don't you tweet me up at Dave Thackeray or email me, he@DaveThackeray.com. That's A on the end. Not call that and make it coma. No, I mean Dave Thackeray. Yes. Anyway, it has been the 27th of June, 2012, which means there'll probably be another one of these coming around the corner on the 3rd of July-ish. Looking forward to speaking to you then. Have yourself a great day.